All right, guys, it's time for therapy. It's November 11th, Veterans Day. First and foremost, happy Veterans Day to all you out there who have served. Want to honor you and thank you for your service to this great nation. A lot of Virginia Tech alums have served the United States of America and want to salute you all and hope people celebrated you today on Veterans Day. Now, we are going to memorialize here this Clemson Virginia Tech game that happened on Saturday. And it's not going to be the most fun pod we ever do, but we hope you guys have some fun recording with us. You're like, Pat, Billy Ray, why are you guys recording on Monday? You guys have been doing Sundays all year long. Well, two reasons we're choosing Monday. One, we were at the Ally tip-off last night in Charlotte, got to take a look at Coach Duffy and the Virginia Tech women's basketball squad for the first time. Excited about this season. Should be fun. Iowa, great team, but saw a lot of good folks there that we'll get into later in the pod. Secondly, this is one of those 48-hour result. Need to digest it. Need to let it marinate. Need to cool off a little bit before we press the record button. So we're excited to chat with you all. We are the Sons of Saturday. Billy Ray is up there in Optimist Park, NODA area, whatever you want to really call it. I'm down here in Myers Park, Charlotte, guys, and we're going to chat with you about this game. So first and foremost, Billy Ray, you kind of predicted this again. You've been on a heater, I will say, with your score predictions and how we perform. But unfortunately, you are on mute.
The way that I felt about this game from Jump Street was that the crowd was going to be great, and Tech and Clemson would be close to like tied at halftime. We actually went in at halftime with the lead and kind of figured that Clemson would pull away in the second half, and that's exactly how it's gone. I mean, we've seen this movie so many times when we play teams that this is a bigger point that I'm going to make, but when we play teams that were more talented than us or ranked higher than us, that's usually kind of been the recipe, is play really well at home in the first half. They pull away in the second half. The biggest difference for me is, I guess this week, I just don't feel like we lost to a team that is eons more talented than we are. I felt like we're going to talk about it. Yes, I predicted this. I predicted this outcome, and this is where we are on the heels of a 24-14 loss. In a game where we went up 7-0 at halftime. So, yeah.
Sons of disappointment. I think it is official. Virginia Tech is probably the second most disappointing football program in all of college football this year. I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to figure out who number one is down there in Tallahassee. But we will kick things off with a Hokie haiku. Submitted from Frosty. Another bad loss. Clemson Tigers win in Lane. Will we win again? And then at the bottom of the haiku, he did put Sons of Leaving Early.
I actually thought that the crowd was pretty great. I thought that the crowd stuck around pretty well in the second half. I mean, I don't know how you couldn't with the defensive effort that we were putting through.
I mean, we had to get out of there early. It was horrible.
Oh, yeah. Yes. I'm glad you brought that up.
A minute left, 2 minutes left.
Left with about 2 minutes left. Had seen enough.
Kid only handled so much torture, Frosty. I mean, Frosty, it was literally like Frosty when he goes into the greenhouse in Frosty the Snowman. Like, we were melting. So
it was like 2 minutes. We had like 2 minutes left. The result, the result was in. Pete McGee, just a masterclass from him. Mediocrity, apocalyptically unsensational. That's correct. He just submitted a haiku of one word per stanza, which is very impressive. Very impressive. So well done, Pete McGee. Where do we watch? Where do we tailgate? Section 129. It was actually on the game day piece of things, Pat.
The best one.
You couldn't have asked for more. The weather was perfect. We kind of split our time from the German club, and which I am now. You came up with this weekend. The Hooligans over at Mayhewell's tailgate. But just from a vibes perspective, you could not have asked more from this beautiful Saturday in November. The weather was awesome, barely any clouds in the sky. Just a stunning day in general. We had Willie Byrne. Yes, that Willie Byrne playing guitar over at Mayhill's tailgate. He was great. I think one of the highs of the weekend was he did play Stick Season. There's a video out there floating around of me behaving like a child because I do love that song. And look, live music is something that we're super, super passionate about. We're going to be doing it more next year. So please do hit us up seriously to do so. Do you want to chime in on just the German club time? I love the O'Neill. What did he call it? The Hokey Alley.
It's cool. We had all the cars kind of backed up against each other. It was like a little alleyway. It was new. It was a new experience. There was a handful of Clemson fans there. They did set up their flags. They had a nice camp going on over there. But 10 out of 10 on the tailgates, 10 out of 10 on the vibes, and it was fun. Showing a Clemson Tiger around. My guy Thompson in town for the weekend. He's not used to losing football games. He was a student at Clemson, I believe, from 2016 to 2020, where Clemson lost a total of 4 or 5 games in his entire undergraduate experience. So that's called being spoiled. And I am certainly a little bit envious of his experience there, but he had an awesome time. And I think one of the coolest parts of the day was Enter Sandman, not the flyover, but the parachutes and into Sandman. He was so fired up about Sandman. I think it's safe to say, now we didn't ask him about it, but I think he would probably say, hey, listen, Pat, hey, listen, Billy Ray, definitely better than that whole magic school bus touching a little pebble before going down the hill.
I mean, I'm not, and the Clemson fans listening to this are not about to allow you to poo-poo on their entrance after romping us in Lane Stadium. But I do love the subtle jab.
He can take his 4 losses in 4 years, and I'll take the entrance. It's a small consolation.
Are we okay with that trade? Because I'm not.
Damn.
I have to say, just before we move on to the game, just giving you the vibe. Crowd was fantastic. Couldn't have asked more for the crowd. Loud on every third down, loud on defense. There were multiple times that I turned around and I said, wow, like this is the best crowd that we've had all year. From an active during the game perspective, really felt like they had a huge impact on the game for sure. It also was I was in rare form after this game. Like I was angry, disappointed. And I don't usually get like that. It just, at this point in the season, Pat, it's not losing the games or the amount of points that we're losing the games by. It is the journey to arriving at the loss. It is how we got there. And we end up in these locations, the locations being the loss, in the most disappointing way. And in none of the games that we have played this year have we just got flat out punched in the face by a team that was way more talented than us. All of the hype, all of the credit, all of the expectations that were placed firmly on the shoulders of Virginia Tech in this preseason. There are going to be multiple players on this roster that will be on NFL rosters next year. There will be multiple players drafted. There will be a ton of players that are in camps. And that's kind of why it feels like a lost season, is there's just so much talent on this roster. And we have not, as a program, been able to maximize and put this team in a position to achieve the most success that it possibly can. And I think that's probably what hurts the most, because it hasn't been that way for, Pat, since 2020, where you have a team who is so talented and just has not been able to showcase it at the level that we believe it should. A lot of the times it's been, hey, look, we don't have a talented enough team to compete here. Or we X, Y, and Z. It is strictly, we are going out and getting, quite frankly, outcoached, outclassed, and outmotivated by other programs. And I think this was the most resounding example of it against this Clemson Tigers football team.
At the end of the day, Clemson really just made plays and we didn't. We made too many mistakes. We couldn't take advantage when we had the ball in their plus territory or our plus territory. Our defense did more than enough to keep us in the football game early. Our special teams as well, put us ahead in the first half. But yeah, I think just there's probably a half dozen plays you can point at and say, well, if this play doesn't happen that way, or if Keontae Jenkins on that strip sack, if we get the ball, we fall on it, we get the ball. Or if, they don't make that interception, if Delane makes that tackle. Yeah, but that's not what happened. Like, the results happened. Clemson was the better football team. Clemson has the guys and the dudes that made the plays, and Clemson had the coaching that put their guys in better position to win the football game.
I want to add this too. Clemson dealt with a ton. Like, we dealt with injuries. Clemson did as well. Clemson, a team that I said coming into this game is a team that you can run on. They had multiple defensive linemen out. Their linebacking unit was injured. But just a couple of statistics here for you before we roll into it. Clemson had the ball for 37 minutes to our 23. Clemson ran 80 plays to our 58. Clemson was 9 of 19 on third down, and we were 2 of 14. And this is probably the most difficult pill to swallow here. Clemson had 167 yards on the ground compared to Virginia Tech's 40. Just a shocking numbers here. And then lastly, we were outscored 24-7 in the fourth quarter. It's really interesting, Pat. When we had that blocked field goal,
that's not true. We were scored.
I'm sorry, 24-7 in the second half. I apologize.
Yeah.
What's really interesting here is when we blocked that field goal, and we'll talk about it at length. It was a momentous play. I turned to you or Ed or somebody, and I said, I don't think we're capable of scoring more points. If the defense isn't scoring or the special teams isn't scoring, I have seen nothing out of this unit to give me confidence that we are going to be able to move the ball down the field and get additional points. And we really didn't up until that last quarter, where we scored essentially a meaningless touchdown. But when we had that return, I was just saying, I hope our defense can have enough gas, because we're going to have to win this game 7-10 or 13-7 or something like that. And that's exactly what happened. It was a complete situation awful on offense.
I just spent that whole first and second quarter just looking up at the scoreboard and just thinking, how the heck has Clemson not scored any points yet?
Oh yeah.
It was because they were putting together these drives where they would just consistently convert on third down, and then they would get to our 40-yard line and the drives would stall out. And it happened throughout the entirety of the first half. And you mentioned that 37 minutes to 23 minutes time of possession. I tweeted this on Sunday morning, waking up hoarse because you're in the stadium and you're yelling on defense, and we yelled for 37 minutes. They ran 80 plays. It felt like we were on defense the entire football game, and I would turn around and look up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe everyone is still here. But obviously they're still there. It's Clemson. We actually have the lead. It's a 7-0 football game, or it's a 7-7 football game, or it's just a one-score football game. How are we still in this game despite our ineptitude moving the football on offense, or just completely dropping the ball when we have the ball in plus territory and making mistakes, shooting ourselves in the foot? So that was the theme of the night.
To that point, a lot of the time when Clemson would have if Clemson was lining up to punt, or we would take over the ball, or there was a stoppage, I'd keep looking up at the scoreboard to see the stat breakdown. And what was concerning to me was, okay, we're winning 7-0, or the score is 0-0, or it's 7-7. But I'm like, Clemson is 2xing us, 3xing us, 4xing us on total yards, rushing yards, everything else. And you knew at some point Dabo and his staff were going to figure it out. And, at that point, I'm going to get into the offense a little bit here. We had 228 total yards. 40 of those were on the ground. 105 of the 228 came in the fourth quarter when the results were in. So we accumulated 123 yards in 3 quarters of football. Seriously, without this blocked kick, you might be looking at Virginia Tech's scoring streak of hokey lore coming to a close. The quarterback play, I do want to say both quarterbacks, obviously, I think don't even appear to be close to 100%. Kyron Drones was 9 of 20 for 115 yards and 1 interception. He also had 11 carries for 13 yards and a fumble. Schlee was 7 of 17 for 73 yards and 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He had 5 carries for 28 yards. I looked this up today because I was trying to think of the last time we showed this level of ineptitude on offense. And I said, okay, if I think this is bad, it might be funny to go and look at the Wake Forest game from 2014. That was the Frank Beamer meme game, 6-3, double overtime. And to my surprise, this game was actually worse from a statistical perspective. And if you want to take into account like offensive inflation and the rules that have gone on in college football that have benefited the offense, it is stunning to me that we were worse in this game offensively than we were in 2014. On Saturday, we had 228 on offense. Against Wake, we had 254. On Saturday, we had 40 yards of rushing, 1.9 yards per attempt. And then against Wake, we had 111 for 2.8. On Saturday, we were 2 of 14 on third down versus 3 of 15 against Wake Forest. So those are just the numbers. It was so painful to watch for 4 quarters. And I know you had a note on one of the other inept situations that we had offensively.
My hell game is 2015 Pittsburgh. Like it was like sprinkling rain. We couldn't move the football. That was the 9 rushing yards game. And I just remember I was in the West Stands of that game, and like I just look at the scoreboard and saw that we had 9 rushing yards. There's like 2 minutes left in the game, and I'm just like screaming at the field about that there's only 9 rushing yards. And that was like the moment for me where I was like, all right, coach needs to retire. This was shades of that. 2015 Pitt, we also had 100 total yards. So not as bad as 100 total yards, but if you take away the fourth quarter and the and the blocked kick, I mean, it's pretty much an eye for an eye there. But just really, really tough. I got to tell you, like, don't watch Hot Wings and Hotter Takes and see my takes about this wide receiving core. I said some super, I'm not going to say outlandish. It wasn't outlandish. I just had really high expectations for our receiving core coming into the season. You're muted.
I'm not going to let you take 100% of the blame for that, Pat. Like this was, I think some folks took it to the extreme, right? In comparing it to that 2016 room. But ultimately, if you see the results of last year and you would be led to believe that this unit was going to be one of the better units in the ACC. And it wasn't just Virginia Tech people talking about it. It wasn't just, maroon glasses type situation. It was a lot of the country was like, they're bringing back legitimate wide receiver talent and are going to have something to say about moving the ball down the field through the air.
Yeah, it's really just been a disappointment. There has not been, outside of the Gosnell brothers, who, shout out to Gilbert Andia. He was wearing a hat that said, "Throw it to a Gosnell." Great hat. We should make more of those. Outside of the Gosnell brothers, there has not been a wide receiver that has taken a step forward this year. I think you can make an argument for Aiden Green there. I think Aiden Green has shown some flashes, and we've definitely praised his game on this podcast. He's a smooth football player, fun to watch. But when you return an offense that pretty much has the entire team coming back and they don't take any steps forward, and we have just a lack of development, it seems, across the board, for the most part. Play calling that isn't getting our best players the ball in space. I even just watching Ali Jennings and Daquan Felton and looking at their numbers this year versus last year. Felton's numbers from last year, he averaged 17.6 yards per reception. He had 667 total yards, 8 touchdowns. This year, his average reception is 10.3, and he only has 310 total yards, 2 touchdowns. Now the deep ball, it didn't click this year. And we still have 2 games. I say that past tense, but it's just been really disappointing knowing that I was most excited about the bad boys. I think Coach Pry, when we had him on the podcast earlier this year, we asked him, what position group are you most excited about? And he didn't want to just pin the wide receivers, but he did mention he's really excited about the wide receivers. And there's been very limited development in that room. Even Jay Lane hasn't gotten the football. We haven't gotten the football to Jalen Lane over the past few weeks. So it's just been extremely disappointing to return, what we all thought was one of the better and more talented rooms in the ACC. And it's just been a huge misdelivery of expectations.
I think too, a point of frustration, and I know this is just kind of one thing, but the amount of routes that we run on 3rd and 8 or 3rd and 12 or 3rd and 10, where the route is being cut off at 4 yards or 3 yards or 2 yards, just short of the sticks, like little things that you don't, good football teams don't do that. And to the Jalen Lane point, I mean, it seems like the only way that we really feature him is like a speed swing or maybe a screen or a dump off or something like that.
Or returning punts.
So yeah, that's certainly a frustration point. Just a couple more numbers here for you. I counted drives that lasted 5 plays or less and ended in a turnover or punt was at 10.5 if you include the end of the half. So 10 drives of 5 plays or less that resulted in a turnover or a punt. Again, 4 total carries to running backs. And I believe that the number that I've seen is 6 drops. And the drops this year have been, one of my trademarked terms are, if it was a spear, he'd be dead. I can't imagine how many times I've said that this year. And again, like, I'm not trying to place the blame. Like, I'm not trying to play blame pie here. Sometimes it's the ball is not where it needs to be. Sometimes the protection is not where it needs to be. Sometimes the ball is just completely dropped. But the fact of the matter is, we have talented wide receivers. We have a talented quarterback, and they are not on the same page and have not been all season. Like, we've been kind of talking about, like, hey, like, whenever this comes together, it's going to look amazing. And it never has. We're here on November 11th, and, you got 2 games left of football, and we haven't seen it.
It sucks. We saw what this team was capable of at the end of last season, and at least offensively, and we're going to talk about the defense after this, but it does just seem that, this team is so flip-floppy. The offense has a good week last week. The defense has a good week the next week, but, fails to do anything in the second half of the Syracuse game. Offense didn't get off the bus this week. It's like at Louisville last year. We scored 3 points at Louisville last year. Like, there's just so sparse amount of consistency. And ultimately that comes back to the offensive coaching staff, the defensive coaching staff, and the head coach. We're not able to have any sort of consistency week over week in 3 years of Virginia Tech football.
A couple of questions that I have regarding the offense that we won't get answers to, and we're not necessarily owed answers. We're not owed answers on this subject matter, but my question would be, why is Bashal Tutin playing in this football game? If he is healthy enough to play, then 4 carries is not nearly enough for a back like that. If he is not healthy, why is Coney or Prelu or literally anybody else in the running back room seeing carries? Like 4 carries to a tailback in a game that was such a defensive slugfest like this, to me, is crazy. Just wild with how other teams have been able to run on Clemson.
I need the stat on it. I don't have it. I wish we had it prepared here, but when was the last time we had less than 5 carries from our running backs? You probably have to go back to Logan Thomas being our quarterback. I have no idea. But Logan Thomas had feature backs too. It's just really confusing. You said it in the preview. You said it on our Jack and Coke video. Clemson, not the best team at stopping the run. How are we going to capitalize on that? Even Drones only had 11 carries.
To that point, I don't know. I wonder why Drones was playing in the football game. Like, he very clear. Chris Coleman said this on his podcast today on Tech Sideline. For Drones to be successful, he has a unique bag of tricks that are at his disposal. And running the football and being able to aggressively run the football is key for his success. If he's not able to do that and you don't have a run game, you're basically asking Kyron Drones to be a pocket passer, which is not what he is, at least at this point in his career. And I would venture to guess that that's probably not something that he is going to become, a strict pocket passing quarterback. What makes him great is his ability to extend on plays, to run aggressively, act as a second or third running back, and also hit the deep ball down the sideline. So I don't really understand why he's in the game if he's unable to do that from a physical perspective. I also thought it was shocking, may not be the right word, but I was very surprised to see that they made the move to Schley at the beginning of the fourth quarter. I don't know if this was injury related. I don't know if it was, trying to get something to happen related. I think that it came, number one, too late. I believe that Kyron came back out with a knee brace on or some sort of situation there. And Schley is banged up too. You could see it on that play where he dove for the first down on fourth down. The reason they weren't running, because at first I'm like, why weren't we snapping the ball to avoid the replay? He was banged up, and he's been banged up ever since that Syracuse game. So making that move to Schley is a significant move to make. I think that it came too late, and I'd be curious to know why the move was made in that manner.
I really wish we got to see him earlier. I would have loved to see him mid third quarter rather than like beginning of the fourth. We were not able to move the ball with Kyron out there at all.
And again, I think a large part of it has to do with his inability to play the game that makes him effective. And injuries have been, I don't know how long he's been injured, and we'll never find out. But he has not been himself for weeks now. And that's unfortunate. And, I did say this after, I don't remember if it was Vanderbilt or if it was Rutgers, but I think he had like 35 or 38 carries in the Rutgers game. Like, when you put that much on a quarterback who you're largely relying on to carry you through the season, when you get to November, when you get to the end of October, that's where some of those injuries can raise their heads. And I think that that's what we saw.
Do you want to talk about some of the plays where?
Yeah, I did a film breakdown on this, on the throwback play. Number one, so we had the ball on the Clemson 28 on our last drive before halftime to try to score. We come out of a timeout and we ran like a swing pass to Aiden Green that was thrown back to Kyron Drones. Number one, I don't understand we're running a trick play there when points were at such a premium at that point in the football game. I also don't know if Kyron would have been given the ability to throw the ball. At first, I thought it was definitely going to go to Daquan Felton, whose corner fell down. Was probably completely by himself in the end zone, but also the offensive line seemed to be blocking down the field. So I don't know if Kyron would have just been running it, but the play was completely dead because we didn't get any of the defensive linemen for Clemson on the ground. and their defensive end did a great job recovering, getting back outside and breaking up the play. But number one, if you're going to run that play, you have to get the guys on the ground on the cut block. It's not just like a dive on the ground and hope the guy falls over you situation. You have to disrupt him. Number two, I don't really understand running that play. I'm probably just handing the ball off 4 times and going in at halftime up 10-0. And we didn't do that. So that drive ends. You go from 1st and 10 on the 28 to 4th and 19 on the 37. You're attempting a 55-yard field goal. Love had the leg to get it in there, but it was wide right. And then Tech goes in 7-0 at halftime after, I got to say, just a Herculean performance from the defense. I know we're about to talk about the defense, but to only go back in 7-0 at the end of a half like that, I wasn't feeling great at halftime. I really wasn't. We had the kick return touchdown. I didn't feel like we had control of the game because our offense was completely inept for the entire first half of the football game.
Yeah, I had the jitters the entire time during halftime. I was just like, I do not feel good about this football game at all. It just felt so weird, like, hey, we totally just gave away 3 points. We should be up 10-0. 7 points was a gift. It was a 10-point swing right there. It got cold at halftime too, so it was just a full boat nervousness here. Clemson, Sammy Brown, their linebacker, was really, really good. I think he was ACC Defensive Player of the Week or ACC Freshman of the Week.
He's everywhere.
Had 2.5 tackles for loss, had their only sack. And then on that interception where they went at Felton again, so we hit Felton down the sideline and then go right at him the next
Great
play.
catch on the first one by Felton.
Really good catch on the first one. And then Ashton Hampton makes a circus one-handed interception. That happened right in front of us. I cannot believe how that play unfolded because the air just completely left Lane Stadium to make a one-handed catch like that. Because I thought it was just going to be, a one-on-one, a 50-50. And, that's probably at the best for Clemson to pass breakup. But I'm thinking, Felton positions himself and gets his hands out in front. Didn't go our way there. But Ashton Hampton I believe he's a true freshman who made that interception from Tallahassee. Incredible effort by that young man.
I'll say it. It was the best catch I've seen all year. We've seen some really good catches in Lane Stadium this year. It was the best catch that I've seen in Lane Stadium. And again, I didn't know he picked it off until they started celebrating on the sideline. Like I had thought, okay, 2nd down, incompletion. Incredible play by him. Are we good to flip on to the defense here?
Let's roll the defense. I think the first thing I want to say about our defense, other than that, but they played great and did what they needed to do to keep us in the game with all bend don't break. Clemson was in hell. Like Clemson was not moving the ball at all, and they were making so many mistakes in that first half. And Thompson was just freaking out. I know they had a lot of guys out who were hurt. They weren't able to run the ball that much in the first half either. But this was far from a complete effort from Clemson's offense, and we did not get the Clemson Tigers offense that they usually have been rolling out there.
No, it took them a while. I'll start with the positives here. I just really have a hard time taking issue with our defense. Scoreless through 2 quarters of play for Clemson. This was the 2nd lowest yardage in a game for Clemson this year behind the UGA game. We held Cade Klubnik to his lowest completion percentage on the year at 47.1. I went back and I looked at his career. I'm pretty sure this is the lowest percentage of his career in games that he had started. He had a couple of games where he had like 2 or 3 attempts and his percentages were lower. But those were back in 2022. So I would imagine that this was the lowest percentage in a game that he started from beginning to end. We had 8 TFLs. We had 4 sacks. And to your point of bend but don't break, here are a couple of drives on where Clemson had first downs and how the drive resulted for them. These are all in order too. 1st and 10 on the VT26 ended in an interception. first and 10 on the VT 34, turnover on downs, first and 10 at the 36 of Virginia Tech, field goal block touchdown, first and 10 at the VT 49, punt, second half, first and 10 from the VT 49 punt, and then first and 10 from the VT 20, held them to a field goal. I don't know what else you can ask for out of this unit. I think they played awesome ball. I think they were everywhere. They were living in the backfield. We saw guys like, APR played really well, but so did Cole Nelson. We had Mose Phillips and Jalen Jones played great. I'll get to my gripes, but we'll keep it positive here for this part.
Really enjoyed Cade Klubnik and his punting abilities. This was elite. We love seeing, in basketball, they call it baseball, they call it a 5-tool player. Good to see Cade Klubnik also using his feet out there and playing football. But that was crazy. We're up 7-0. Cade Klubnik punts the ball, 3 minutes left in the second quarter. It goes like 8 yards. Let me pull up exactly how far Cade.
It was a 19-yard punt.
And it looked way worse than 19. It went out of bounds. We get the ball back in favorable territory, and Mark Jones and Roddy Jones both were just like, well, Dabo, like, don't you have a guy on the team who is actually named the punter? And oh man, that was like, at that point, it was Clemson is sucking. And we need to take advantage of this. Like, this is just like, what is Dabo doing in his bag of tricks? You see Dabo on the sideline actually exchanging a laugh with Cade after the play, as Roddy and Mark Jones are also cracking up in the booth. But that was a moment where I was like, okay, we're both not going to play good football today. But at least, Kyron Jones isn't out there punting it. We got really good pressure on Cade, specifically in the first half. APR had another sack. Sam Brumfield had a sack. Cole Nelson, and then I think the Keonta Jenkins sack where he forced a fumble and they fell on it is really just one of those moments you wish you had back. And but as far as our defense, like, they did get pressure on the quarterback. Having 4 sacks against a Clemson offensive line, despite having some guys banged up. Clemson's known for what they have in the trenches when Dabo established that, about a decade ago. So you can't fault the guys up front at all on Saturday.
Yeah, I think on the gripe side of things, if I had to pick some, Clemson had a ton of drops. They've been doing this all year. They have a really young receiving core who's going to be really good. But they did have a bunch of drops. When Maffa did get going, he finished the game with 26 carries for 128. The holes that he was running through when he did have effective runs were massive holes, especially on some of those drives where they would putter out in the red zone, but they would be able to move the ball meticulously down the field on us. What are a couple of other ones here? I thought that one thing that's kind of plagued us this year is our safeties have a little bit of trouble with angles. I know they're young, and I know they're being put in a position because we still haven't seen Stroman come back from his injury early on in the season. Take a lot of bad angles, missing tackles, getting shook off, or in some cases, like last week, a safety blocking a cornerback to turn a 15 or a 5-yard gain into a 15 or a 60-yard gain. We've seen that a lot this year. Couple of times leaving guys wide open. Again, like these are gripes, but at a certain standpoint, a team like Clemson is going to click and score, and you're going to have busts on defense, and we did. Most notably, Dorian Strong lost his man on the touchdown. He actually made an incredible play recovering, getting his hand in between the receiver's face and the football. Receiver made an amazing catch. And then again, on that second Clemson score, a perfect call, free hitter on Klubnik. Don't get him on the ground, throws it up in the air. Receiver makes the catch. It was such a crazy play that Mark Jones, I think he would want that call back because it was wasn't a great call. He kind of like tripped over his words a little bit. I'm hating on Mark Jones. I don't have any problems with Mark Jones, but you said it. What? It was like shades of Matt
Boston
Ryan.
College. I'm not telling you that Matt Ryan, rolled out to his right. But Cade Klubnik avoided pressure. Completely stayed on his feet. He gave a hat tip to his strength and conditioning staff and the coach there. But Cade rolls out and hits TJ Moore down at the sideline. It reminded me of Boston College because you had a very well-known quarterback making a play, avoiding pressure, and then hitting a seemingly wide open receiver who is just
waiting for the ball to come down
and waiting for the ball. And same exact end zone, south end zone, against the best team in the conference. That's what Boston College was, the best team in the conference up until that point in 2007.
Do want to say the Gabe Williams situation is extremely unfortunate. A young man who was one of the highest recruited players coming out of high school in that group. I don't know how many plays he's gotten on defense, if any, but gets an opportunity to get out there and get some reps in and is taken away in an ambulance. So I don't know what his status is or what the injury was. Looked pretty awful. So we're certainly thinking of him and hope that he has a quick recovery. But to summarize everything, like I have a really hard time being frustrated with the defense. They were awful last week, and I won't say they were great, but they were certainly good enough to win this football game. And that's kind of the story of the year, Pat. Like whether it's for a quarter, like, oh, we were good enough for 3 quarters to win the game, or, oh, the offense showed up, the defense didn't. Oh, the defense showed up, but the offense didn't. Oh, the special teams didn't show up this week. Like it's like whack-a-mole every single week on like what is going to happen here. And this week it was the offense, whether it be health, whether it be whatever. The defense showed up and played vintage Virginia Tech defense against this Clemson team that has talent all over the football field. Special teams. I do want to shout out the kick return unit. They set the tone. Starting field position on the first drive was on the 38. We did punt. But they did get the ball out to the 38. You already mentioned it. The Clemson punt by Klubnik, objectively a hilarious play. No question about it. The blocked field goal touchdown, take the result out, was a top blank moment, or it was the best moment in Lane Stadium since what?
Let's throw a few out here. Okay. I don't want to get carried away here, but we could have a few good ones. I will position the Sam Rogers Peoples Miami touchdown, the trick play, 2016. You might kind of be on the same page as this one. I will throw out the Michael Brewer roll to his right, hits Ryan Malik across his body before halftime, Ohio State.
If you say that one, you also should say the Sam Rogers long touchdown against Ohio State as well. That's another good one. And I don't think this is dramatic because it was, if you take out the feeling of the season and everything else, how big of a play that was in the moment that it was on the stage that it was huge.
I think we could throw, who was it? Jermaine Waller, pick 6, Notre Dame.
Yeah.
In 2021. I think it was like the first half. Maybe it was the second half. That was awesome.
Narelle Pollard fumbled, scoop and score.
Pittsburgh
play. It was a great crowd pop. It was awesome. There were awesome. I mean, it was awesome from the whole unit. Burgos blocked it. Quentin Reddish returned it. Caleb Woodson, Mose Phillips, and Mansour Delane immediately went into like block mode and had key block. I mean, he doesn't score without those 3 blocks. And we may not score ever without those 3 blocks. So great job.
You need the convoy. I think we learned down in Coral Gables, the Caleb Spencer interception. The convoy is everything.
What's crazy too is this was their 3rd blocked field goal in a row. That's not a misnote. They had 2 field goals blocked in their game last week. So this was their 3rd blocked field goal in a row. They were able to convert on a field goal in the 4th quarter. But I thought that was pretty crazy. Thompson actually was not shocked that we blocked this field goal.
He was down bad, and
yeah.
I was like, all right, I wasn't really expecting him to be this bummed out, because I didn't think we were going to do that. But this was our first blocked field goal for a touchdown since 2016. This was also Clemson's 6th kick that they had blocked this year.
That's unbelievable.
So they're probably going to be having some special teams coordinator conversations at the end of the year, I'm sure.
One other note on this game, I do think that, and look, Peter Moore has been great all year. I'll sing Peter Moore's praises until the sun goes down. But one thing that we really struggled with is a couple of opportunities to pin Clemson deep, which we weren't able to do it. I believe we had 2 touchbacks, and that's a complete unit thing. You got to get down there and you got to down it. But obviously defense and field position was at a premium here. And that was an area that we struggled in a little bit. But compared to where we've been with special teams all year, I think it's fair to say that overwhelmingly so, we won the special teams battle. So on defense, we won. On special teams, we won. And just weren't able to get it done on offense. I have a couple of Clemson observations that I just want to share. Phil Maffa is going to be a really good back at the next level. His frame is huge. He is a massive back. Kind of gives me like Derrick Henry light vibes. When he was standing next to Cade Klubnik, he's every bit of, I don't know if he's listed at 6'3" or 6'4", but he is every bit of that. Just kind of look like it's kind of like that guy in like 8th grade who's hit puberty before everybody else on like the Little League football team. When I saw him on the sideline, that's kind of how I felt about him when I was just looking at him from the stands. Cade Klubnik, really fun player. He probably needs to learn to throw the ball away a little bit. There were a couple of instances I remember he scrambled out of bounds for an 8-yard loss when you could literally just underhand it and have it be an incompletion versus a loss. The interception play that was high pointed by, it was Mose Phillips and Jalen Jones. I don't know who tipped it and who caught it. But
Jones caught it.
Okay. Probably a good ball to throw away there. But overall did a very good job of not getting rattled and making plays when he needed to make plays. I already spoke about the wide receiver room that is young, that's going to get better. Another thing that I loved, and this is why I love sitting where we sit, is just watching Dabo and his staff throughout this football game. Number one, on the touchdown play by number 22 in the end zone. If you watch the game footage, he catches the ball. It's an amazing play. They go up, they either tie it at 7 or go up 14-7. And the first thing, Dabo meets the wide receiver on the 8-yard line, grabs him by his face mask, and lays into him for getting the taunting celebration and everything else. I've always loved Dabo's culture. I've always loved his intensity. That kind of just speaks to that for being there for so long. And also, he's parading up and down the sideline the entire game. And he's telling everybody, the offensive line, the quarterback, the running back, we're going to get it done. Keep pounding, keep swinging the hammer, keep getting it done. You're seeing him go like this, like over and over and over again throughout the game. As soon as they finally get their first touchdown, the elation, the excitement, the energy, the vibes, the mojo that was just oozing out of the entire Clemson football team is so directly tied to the energy that Dabo is giving them. And he's going over, he's patting every single offensive lineman on the shoulder pads. I told you, keep it going. We got them right where we want them to go. I enjoyed watching that. That is a staff and a culture that is a large reason why they're rattling off these 10-win seasons every single year. Matt Luke, I enjoyed watching him too. He actually was at Ole Miss when I was getting recruited to Ole Miss. He's a really, really well-respected offensive line coach. They have a really good staff over there. And I do think that this unit, they have a lot of young talent. They're going to be a good team coming up here. They just got to retain their talent. But for all the things that we said about Dabo, not adjusting, not changing his ways, I don't know how it's going to play out in the future, but I do know that the culture that he has instilled in this program is a complete winning culture. And that is why they come out on top in games like this. And that is where we need to find how to get. This was not a 1-score football game at the end of it, But for 3/4 of football, it was a 1-score game, and somebody was going to be the hammer and somebody was going to be the nail. And Clemson's culture, Clemson's coaching, Clemson's execution led them to a victory on the road against a team that is on par with them from a talent perspective. I know both teams are banged up, but I guess my big point here, Pat, is we didn't lose this game because of talent. The only game that you can make that argument for is Miami. And we competed great against Miami, but I guess I don't have this written down, but we got out cultured on Saturday. That is what happened. And that's what you get.
They made the necessary adjustments too. In halftime, came out 24 points in the second half to our 7 points in the second half. I thought it was fun sitting with a Clemson fan and kind of getting his perspective and hearing about some Tiger lore. You got Bear Bryant's grandson is the Clemson fourth string quarterback. A lot of, obviously Kirk's kids played at Clemson.
Sweeney's kids.
Dabo's got a son on the team right now. I also thought it was interesting. I was like, oh shoot, there's Tristan Lee down on the sideline. I know he was banged up, so I don't think he played at all on Saturday, which was kind of probably a bummer for him coming to his home state and not playing in Lane Stadium. But he was a 5-star from Robinson. He is a guy that got away. He was in that Tony Grimes recruiting cycle where we had two of the top 10 recruits in the country in Virginia, Northern Virginia guy. I mean, I think outcultured is a good way to put it. In all, we've mentioned a lot of this, but there were just a series of mistakes that Virginia Tech made that if they go a different way, it's a different football game. And, that's the trick play. That's the sack on Klubnik. That's I didn't watch the replay of this, Billy Ray. I know you thought he was short, but the run on 4th down by Schlee that was reviewed and overturned.
He was absolutely short.
He was.
But that's an example of a play. I think Schlee, if he's healthy, gets that first down. He was shook up getting up. It was originally called a first down. If they're able to get to the line and run another play, maybe you get past it. I believe he was short.
I think, Felton, if Felton makes that catch instead of, the freshman coming up with a Sports Center top 10 play,
or even breaks it up, or even if it's just a drop.
Yeah.
You're in plus territory with a chance to potentially get in field goal range.
If we don't drop the ball 6 times, I know you wrote this in the notes. Clemson also had just as many drops. That's why I was like, they did not come to play tonight in the first half. Probably had their worst first half of the season and their best second half of the season. Clemson did. But ultimately, this game is a different game. If Bashal Tutin is at 100% or 80% or whatever percent is getting him the football, but ultimately, if Virginia Tech's coaching staff is getting off the bus with a game plan, and I think we did not have our best effort on Saturday across the board.
Yeah, I mean, to the point of like getting off the bus with a game plan, right? I'm thinking back on this season and the amount of times that I feel like we have showed up with a game plan that put us in a position to win the game in all phases. That list is probably Stanford.
That's it.
Stanford, Boston College, because we came out, we punched him in the mouth. And I like how we utilized Schlee on offense against Syracuse, but it was a disaster on defense against Syracuse. Like, again, this is the most talented team that we've had since 2020, 2019, 2016. And again, we've lost games not on talent. We're more talented than every team we've played this year except for Miami. But if you want to look at it across this football season, here have been some of the issues. We're not prepared to come out for a football game. Vanderbilt, Old Dominion, Marshall, and Rutgers just completely come out flat and surrender leads that you have to fight back and get into the football game for. You self-destruct on just inexplicable situations. You had the 0-0 situation. We had 2 numbers on the Miami game that wasn't called either. Clock management against Syracuse and Miami. And quarters of anguish. In the beginning of the season, it was the first quarter. Andy Bitter put this tweet out. It's the Hokies point differential by quarter this season. In the first quarter, the Hokies are plus 29. In the second quarter, they're plus 37. In the fourth quarter, they're plus 51. Well, what quarter are we missing? It's the third quarter. The Hokies have been outscored by 41 points in the third quarter this year. In the third quarter is where you come out from halftime with your halftime adjustments, halftime script, and your halftime coaching adjustments. We have been outscored.
Most important quarter.
We have been outscored by 41 points. So this consistent like whack-a-mole of, okay, here's the problem. Let's try to address it. Syracuse, it's the defense. Clemson, it's the offense. Rutgers and Vanderbilt were both. Special teams rears their ugly head here and there and everywhere. It is just preparing for this podcast. I just am kind of out of answers because I don't think that we have the answers. I think we've been searching for them all year, and it's just been something that we haven't been able to identify or put our finger on and put the best product out on the field, which is unfortunate, Pat. I really like this group. I really like Bashal Tutin. I like all of these players. They seem to have great personalities. Some have been here for a while. Some are new. Some are freshmen. And we haven't been able to come up with that special sauce that puts them on display the best. And I guess, like, if you look back at 2020, you say, okay, like, what exactly did we lose in 2020? I look at a guy like Khalil Herbert, who was a generational player that was on that team and had a generational output and effort. And we're kind of seeing that again with Bashal Tutin. Except this year there are fans in the stands, and it's just hard to watch. So I don't know what the answers are. I don't. We haven't been able to pinpoint it. We haven't put to date. We have put together a 4-quarter football game once, and it's against Stanford in California, which is probably the most inexplicable part of that entire thing. Is that the one time that we showed up and played our best football game was in a different time zone. Just so difficult to understand.
OxBT just put this out about our scoring defense. Our scoring defense ranking by quarter. First quarter, 26th in the country. Second quarter, 10th. Third quarter, 108th. And then fourth quarter, 39th. It's just like, man.
Yeah.
Didn't you feel it too? When Clemson got the ball at a halftime?
I told Paul Patera.
When they're going down.
I told Paul Patera I was going to get me another Blue Yummy. And I turned to Paul Patera at halftime. He comes over, gives me a high five. And I said, and this is not me being super negative. It's just this is not me being negative. This is me reacting to what I have seen for an entire football season. It was, are you prepared for heartbreak in the second half? Because it's coming. I hope I'm wrong, but this is what I've seen this year over and over and over again. And that's exactly what we saw. Some numbers and insight these are just facts and numbers that were put out by a couple of different folks. So if you're not sitting down, grab a seat. David Teal put this one out yesterday. Virginia Tech has not defeated an ACC opponent that has finished with a winning conference record since NC State in 2020.
And that was the first game of COVID. That was the first game of 2020. So 1, 2, 3, essentially 4 full seasons of not beating a team with a winning conference record from the ACC.
And we've gone through some of those teams that we have beaten and what their situation is. Now, this record has a chance to be broken if Georgia Tech finishes with a winning ACC record. But again, the Georgia Tech team that we beat had a backup quarterback. So that's one number. That's one number that's difficult to hear. And here's maybe a more difficult number to hear. It's from Danny Nickel or Nickel, or I don't know what his name is, but he's got a cool baby with the Who man. Football records in the past 7 football seasons: UVA 39-41 with a 488 win percentage, Virginia Tech 40-44 with a 47.6 win percentage. Those are the numbers. Those are the facts.
And
That
it's even
is
worse when you consider that 4 of those Virginia Tech wins were against UVA. So if you
you
take
get double credit.
if you take those out, UVA, which is 1-4 against Virginia Tech in that same time span, UVA is 38-37. That's over 500. Virginia Tech is under 500 in the ACC if you exclude those games. 36-43, 45% winning percentage.
So again, guys, this is not a fun exercise, but I think this is probably like the most important part of this conversation is like, where do we go from here? I don't know how motivated this team is, and that's not me issuing a challenge at all, because as you said, Virginia Tech to me is the second most disappointing team in the country. You had Pat McAfee. I think it was Brett McMurphy. It wasn't Brett McMurphy. Somebody else had us in their
Matt Berry.
Matt Berry had us in their college football playoff rankings. Everybody was kind of, man, Virginia Tech, how great would it be if Virginia Tech comes back out and they're one of those teams that's at least in the conversation? We are not in the conversation. We are not on the sideline of the conversation. We are eons away from the conversations. And if you want to say, well, it was this many games by this many points, it is what it is. And that's how it works.
You lost
so my question is how motivated is this team? APR, Mansour Delane, Bashal Tootin, Dorian Strong, Kyron Drones. Will we see them play again this year? Who the hell is playing quarterback for Virginia Tech next week or in 2 weeks? We got the bye week, so maybe we can get healthy here. But Lee and Drones, as of right now, are not 100%. Do you see Davie Belfort? Do you see Pop Watson? This felt like a pivotal moment, Pat. A pivotal moment where you could go one way or the other. And it went the way that we were all hoping and pleading and wanting it not to go. And again, it's not the result. It's the way we keep arriving at these results.
Man, yeah, I just don't see how this team finishes 7-5. Duke is
6-6.
Duke is 7-3. They're rolling. They just rolled NC State last week. Duke could win 9 football games this year.
Mm-hmm.
Virginia just came off a battle at Pittsburgh on the road. 24-19. Pittsburgh they got to be down bad. I'm sorry to our friends up there, the loyal Sons, but these are not going to be 2 easy football games. Is Virginia Tech going to be favored in either of them? I'm not sure. I don't really know what keeps this team motivated. Bowl games don't really mean anything anymore, unfortunately. I'd love to see Brent Pry covered in mayonnaise in Charlotte just as much as the next guy. But what is left in the tank? I have no idea, and I don't know how healthy we are to do that. It sucks to have a bye week off of a loss like that. It's nice to get our guys healthy, but yeah, what is this bye week really for? Who is this bye week for? I think really the conversation is going to turn into the postseason conversation of, despite, are we playing for a bowl game? Is this Virginia game going to decide who goes to a bowl? Like, that is going to suck if that is the reality. Every rivalry game is a fun rivalry game, and you want to play for something that's on the line here, want to represent Virginia. That's really what the staff has been has as a key objective since they came in, is putting a fence around Virginia and winning Virginia. And that game will mean something at the end of the day, but it's going to mean a lot less than what we thought we were going to be able to obtain this season. But I think it's not too early to start talking about how there may be some different personnel on the sidelines prior to kicking off in Atlanta versus South Carolina next August or next September or whenever Labor Day weekend falls on. This is a business. These guys are paid to win football games. They're paid very handsomely to win football games. And if they're not going to do that, then, we should find someone else who is going to be able to put us in a better position to do that. I think you see it happening all across the sport right now. Mike Norvell, who is off to a historic start in the worst way possible at Florida State. They're 1-9, and they got like Charleston Southern and Florida to finish up the year. I don't know how they will play versus Charleston Southern, but I'm very interested to see what the line is on that football game. They just went out and lost 52-3 in South Bend.
Charleston Southern is also 1-9, by the way. I did look it up.
Oh, nice. Okay. Mike Norvell signed an 8-year extension prior to the season worth more than $84 million, and he has a $63 million buyout. So unless you have more money than God, like they do in Aggie land, $63 million is not going to be able to, you're not going to be able to make that buyout. If they were to fire Norvell, they would be paying Norvell $875,000 per month through December 31st, 2031.
It's so foolish. So foolish.
Absolutely insane. So they said, hey, we can't do that. So, hey, Mike Norvell, we need you to just hire a full new staff. And Norvell went out and is cleaning house. He fired his coordinators, and he's going to replace them with hopefully something that is better than 1-9. Still can't believe that happened, by the way. I saw an On3 article today, and the title of the article is, "It's too expensive to fire most head coaches, so the coordinator market is about to go crazy." If you guys remember Notre Dame, they went 4-8 in 2016. We went up there. We had a blast in South Bend. It was the coldest game ever. Nice comeback. That was Fuente's first year. They finished 4-8. Brian Kelly hired 2 new coordinators, and they turned it around. Their next 5 years, 10-3, 12-1, 11-2, 10-2, and 11-1. In the article mentioned there were about a half dozen programs that may be in the market for new offensive coordinator. Florida State, Oklahoma State, Nebraska, Georgia, potentially LSU. We saw Dana Holgerson sign on as an offensive consultant with Nebraska. He is now their head play caller. He is their offensive coordinator as of yesterday or Monday, which is wild. Dana Holgerson, king of the big. I guess Nebraska's not in the Big 12 anymore. The buyouts in college football are absolutely insane. As I just mentioned, Texas A&M paid Jimbo $76 million. No one should ever do that ever again in the age of NIL, unless you just have FU money. Gus Malzahn is the second highest buyout in the modern era. He received $20 million a couple of years ago at Auburn. Brent Venables' buyout is $44 million. So, obviously that is a point of contention at Oklahoma. Brian Kelly's buyout is $61 million. And Billy Napier, who just announced by Florida's athletic director that he will be staying another year, well, a lot of it is because who wants to pay Billy Napier $26 million? Especially in today's day and age in college football, with the reallocation of money with NIL, you wonder if the pendulum will ever swing back this way on coaches' salaries. It's a lot cheaper to hire and fire coordinators than it is to hire and fire a head coach. But I guess this really just boils down to, between the Virginia game and the end of the season and the offseason, is Brent Pry willing to make the staff changes that Justin Fuente was not willing to change? Is he willing to look himself in the mirror and say, hey, I need to do better than this. And that means I need to, clear house, or I need to part ways with some of my guys for the benefit of this program, for the longevity and sustainability of this program. I would be very surprised if we have this same staff in Atlanta week 1 of next year, but time will tell in that standpoint.
And again, it's never, to your point, it's a job that's really hard. You're paid really well for it. Really, really well for it. And the results are very black and white. And I'm never, ever, ever going to get up here and call for or clamor for or champion somebody losing their job, especially due to the fact that, like, when something like that happens, it affects multiple families and multiple lives. But at the end of the day, you have to yield results. And this product is unacceptable for Virginia Tech. And we will see what happens from here until toe meets leather in Atlanta in 2025.
But what we're seeing is unacceptable. Yeah, I mean, just what we're seeing is unacceptable. Like, we need to cut ties here with some of our staff members. I think it's no secret, that some of those decisions have to be made. And I'm not going to come out here and say, hey, such and such needs to go. But I do know that, people will raise hell, and we will not be happy if this is how we line up next year. It's unacceptable.
What is, I'm not going to call it unacceptable, but it's certainly unexpected, is that Duke and Virginia Tech will play at 8:00 in 2 weeks. We're going to be there. Going to be interesting. So we will see.
Goblin down to Durham.
What happens there? Shifting over to letters from the lunch pail, I only took 2. We're running a little long here. So from Jerry Zeckert, I see Hazel beside Pry now. He is the chief of staff administration. Didn't know he was a coach. Why? Independent assessment for Pry. Coach Pry has said this in pressers before. Hazel is on clock assistance, from what I understand. So assisting with clock management and in-game situation stuff. That is your answer. So that is why. AM Franklin, where's the hope for this program? Pat, I didn't write anything down. I don't know if you wrote anything down. Again, I don't know how you motivate this program.
I don't know about the program. That's not what I'm paid to do. We do speak to the fans. Mm-hmm. We do encourage going to Blacksburg, buying tickets, going to games, staying all 4 quarters. I'd say there's hope in a couple areas. There's hope if we remove the new seat backs. I think that would be a plus. I think that'd be a tally in the win column. I think we can decrease the prices of alcohol in the stadium by 25%, so people will stick around for all 4 quarters. Because at the end of the day, Blacksburg is just one big party every single weekend, all 6 weekends. Next year, we do have 7 home games. There you go.
Wow.
AM Franklin, that's hope for you. We have 7 home games, and we have a neutral site game. That rocks.
Yeah.
I haven't seen 7 home games in forever, so that's good. But I really think that there is not much to sell the fan base right now.
Yeah.
Other than no seat backs and cheaper booze in the stadium. That's the point that I have reached, unfortunately. And, if I don't see changes, if fans don't see changes made from the staff standpoint, I know that people are not going to be hitting that renew my season tickets button. Like, people will not stand for bullshit. And if you want to keep, the definition of insanity, expecting the same thing or expecting different results while doing the same exact thing, you will get different results from this fan base. They will not come back to Blacksburg. They will not be buying their season tickets. I saw so many people at this Clemson game that probably saw that we were going to be good this year, quote unquote good. People were talking about us. When you return that much talent to the program, you're going to have higher expectations, especially after finishing the season, kind of on what we would call a hot streak. I saw so many people who probably booked their tickets like a long time ago because they're like, oh, we're going to be good this year. Let's go to the Clemson game. It's the best team that comes to Lane Stadium this year. And all of a sudden, November 9th rolled around. They're like, all right, well, we got to go to the Clemson game, even though we're not, playing for much here. You get the casual fans back in Blacksburg for the first time. And not only do you put a stinker out on the field, the crowd was great and they were terrific. But you also have this downtown Blacksburg situation, which all we want to do is help and figure out solutions there, which is a time for another podcast. We did post a video of all the lines in the overflow, and it was crazy.
Disaster.
And if you want to buy in to Blacksburg, Virginia, and you only come back once every 3, once every 5, or once a year, and you see that when you're just trying to meet up with some old college friends for a libation pre or post game, you're not going to come back again. So I know this is a long-winded tangent, but AM Franklin, I wish there was more hope in the program right now, and I'm extremely disappointed in how this 2024 campaign has gone.
I want to say this too. I think from an expectation standpoint, and this is I've known, and a lot of people have known, that this is the reality, that we went all in from an NIL perspective on football this year at the expense of some of our other programs. And that is what I think hurts the most. Is it's not just expectations of like, okay, the expectations are specific to us having fun on Saturdays, or the expectations are, well, we're Virginia Tech. We expect to be better at football. The expectations come from, we invested seriously in NIL to retain and attain players, good players who are on this roster. And those resources, there is a single pot of resources. And this goes on at every school. This is not a Virginia Tech problem. This is happening at every single school. And schools need to make a decision. How much are we going to allocate to this sport? How much are we going to allocate to this sport? How much are we going to allocate to this sport? And a ton of expectations and support and resources were poured into football. And when you don't execute on this, it is devastating. And I think that's where we're sitting on. And that's why I will have zero patience for steam or anger or anguish to be blown off on Mike Young or Megan Duffy or any one of our other programs, because they are, in my opinion, for the last however many years, for Mike Young specifically, Kenny Brooks before that, they are maximizing their situation every single year and squeezing the orange and getting every ounce of every win that you possibly can with the roster that we trot out there. And that did not happen with football this year. It did not. And there's you can win out, lose out, you do whatever. That is how this football season has unfolded. So, and to put a cap on this, because I think this is an elongated conversation that we're going to have when the season is over. I'm not saying we shouldn't have done it. I'm not saying that we made a mistake. I'm saying that the results on the field did not match everything else that went on off the field to put this team on the field. That is the fact.
And to get those people in the stands, we sold out the season. I don't. I think the Virginia game sold out. I'm not sure, but
it'll be a good environment. I was talking about this with Eric McLean last night, and he was like, "Look, like disappointing season, but it's going to be a good environment. It's the first time UVA is coming to play in front of fans since 2018. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be there. Truth be told, but I know that a lot of people will be.
Hand up, I don't know if I'm going either. So I haven't missed that game since 2012. This team has made it really hard. I'm sorry. It might be a week time decision, but we are bringing a huge crew. We're bringing 50 people to Duke.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be exciting.
To wrap this up with Sharky shout-outs, Willie Byrne, it was great seeing him. We were teammates my freshman year. Just an awesome, awesome guy. So he played music at the Hooligans tailgate, but he's also a residential loan officer with Southern Trust Mortgage. They operate in that's a modern mortgage lender that operates in Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, and Florida. By the way, they're doing a cool promotion for our veterans called Hometown Heroes. Southern Trust is offering a $400 lender credit for appraisal costs plus a $100 donation to the foundation of your choosing for vets or active duty who are shopping for VA loans specifically. So Willie Byrne works with clients in all the states previously mentioned. So reach out to him directly for more details. We will put his details in the article here and in the caption, or just say what's up. You can find Willie on their website at southerntrust.com, or we will share this on our social media platforms.
The Paperboy.
The Paperboy. What a guy, man. What a guy.
Willie
Talk
Byrne
about a guy who maximized his talent at his time at Virginia Tech. Willie Byrne. He's one of those guys.
He goes down in the Hokie lore. Willie Byrne's touchdown in 2013 in the rain versus Marshall with the digital camo helmets.
Oh,
Some people loved them. Some people did not like them. But Willie Byrne, number 82, definitely a Hokie stud. And he had all the Virginia Beach folks down hanging at the tailgate as well. Got to meet Joe, the legend who did the flyover for the Georgia Tech game.
Great mustache.
Got a cool stash. Crushes it up there in the helicopter. But yeah, really, really fun hanging out with Willie this weekend. Shout-outs, more Sharky shout-outs. We had our Section 5 club event at Bull and Bones on Friday night. Had a really good time, meeting a lot of great people and supporters of the show. The Saturday Shandy beer, Sons of Saturday Shandy, was absolutely flowing at Bull and Bones. Pitchers, pints, John had it going. And I got to say, it is very, very good. I know we haven't pumped it that much on social or on the pod this year, but if you go to Bull and Bones, ask for the Saturday Shandy. I know they have some left prior to moving into the darker beer winter season, but it is a very good beer. I had quite a few of them. We also gave out some VT Rowbacks, gave out some old vintage Hokie gear, had a good time. So shout out to our Section 5 club. And again, if you want to engage in opportunities with us, every single person there got the free buffet, free drinks, and a +1. Definitely check out the Section 5 club on the Sons of Saturday website. It's only $5 a month to join. Pretty good deal.
The food was fantastic. This weekend, this was a great weekend.
It was.
This weekend, I met, speaking of Virginia Beach, David Wright was one of my absolute favorite baseball players growing up. New York Met legend from Virginia Beach. Big Virginia Tech fan. Transparently, I was standing outside of the bathroom. He was walking into the bathroom. I said, David. And he kind of, yeah. And I was like, you're David Wright. He's like, I am. I said, I'm one of your largest fans. Not to be a little weird, but I certainly am. So really enjoyed that. Kate Martin from Iowa, met her at the Allied Tip-Off. Holly Rowe, met her at the Allied Tip-Off. Got to see Eric McLean, Raven, Liz, Kelly Gramlich. And I do just want to shout out our group for that at the Allied Tip-Off. Sitting courtside. Shout out to Adam and Dawn Boitnott for the tickets. I was with the Bel Airs, who are still supporting Virginia Tech. We'd love to see that. Jason and Stacy Rutherford, Josh and Carrie Allison, Christy Brooks, Noah Nichols, and of course, Juliana Plesha, who crushed Q&J this weekend. We have some awesome film that'll be coming out from that. Really excited about it. So we had a great time at the Allied Tip-Off.
David Wright rocks. Shout out to Ann Castle for getting us seats to the Allied Tip-Off last night. Also, shout out to the guy on ESPN in the student section at Tech, tapping his buddy on the shoulder. Shirtless guy just taps his buddy on the shoulder. Guy down low looks over, has no idea who tapped him on the shoulder. Totally got him on national television.
Crushed.
Also saw some good turkey legs getting passed around. There were a couple of stars were in town too.
Wyatt Teller, Donovan Riley, Narelle Pollard led the Let's Go. I believe Divine Diablo is in town. Josh Jackson was in town. It was great. It was great. And then also quick shout out to the Prokies. Joey Sly, 4 of 4 on field goals and 1 of 1 for extra points. And then JPR was 4 of 4 for Minnesota this past week. So really awesome performance by all of them. It's nice to smile on this podcast. I feel like we haven't done that.
Yeah, I know we have to wait. I wish we could shout out everyone too. I think this was a huge weekend of just meeting really great people. But Pry-Nose Ball snuck up on us. He's like, dude, I'm Pry-Nose Ball. I was like, dude, great tweets. Chris Quillen, hung out with Chris at the tailgate as well. Great to catch up with him. Just chatting about some more Hokie lore. The Brick in Charleston hosted us last weekend. It was fantastic. Noah and Jake from Broadway to Blacksburg ran into them at Souvlaki. Souvlaki was hitting so good post game.
I got to tell you that, Pat, I was giving you a little bit of crap last time when you were saying that was the highlight of the week. It was unbelievable. It hit so. I had 3. I ordered 2, and then I said, bring me one more, damn, please. And I crushed that. So that was awesome. And shout out to Nathan Gray, too. I got a chance to meet Nathan Gray. You will not meet a larger women's basketball supporter than Nathan Gray. He always crushes it. So I got to meet him as well.
And then final shout out to Jesse Hillis and Ryan Beatson. I know they're getting married in April. Hung out with them, sat next to them at the game. Tremendous time hanging out with them in the former Section 5. But that's a podcast. I don't know if you had anything else, Billy Ray. We got a bye this week. It's coming at a good time, I think, for us at least. I don't know. This has been a tough stretch here.
I know I just rubbed my face. My mom watched this podcast and said to make a conscientious effort to touch my face, bite my nails, and just fidget on this podcast. So I'm going to continue to try to get better at that. Mom, thank you for the feedback. If you are still here with us on this podcast, please comment below.
Baloney. Comment baloney, because what we saw the past 2 weekends, it was baloney.
I agree. Comment baloney. We'll see you soon. Not sure what the podcast this week will be. I'm kicking around the idea of, Pat, I wonder if we could do something about what is the biggest reason that college sports or college football is better than the NFL? I feel like that deserves a bit of a conversation. The NFL has some serious problems. They don't have enough good games that are going on. It is not appointment television for me at all. And it is becoming less of appointment television for a lot of NFL truthers. And
the European stuff, I think, is gimmicky.
Get it out of here. It's so bad. I don't know who that's for. And if you're going to send them to Europe, let's not send teams that are awful. Actually, probably make Europe not like football. I'm sure Europe did not enjoy seeing the Panthers and the Giants. But anyway, that's a podcast. Like, subscribe. Check us out on social media, Sons of Sat VT, and we will be seeing you soon. And if you are gobbling down, up, or sideways to Durham, we hope to see you.